empowering you to build better lives. That's what we do. So welcome to today's episode of Empower, the podcast that is dedicated to enabling you or empowering you to find your truest potential. Today, I'm excited to sit down with Charley Patterson, longtime friend, professional wakeboarder turned team elite, 18 years here with New Skin. Charley, thanks for being here all the way down from the Northwest in your power van, together with Christy, your wife, and with 5 kids who are staying somewhere else so we can have this conversation.
That's
Thanks
right.
for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, Charley, we're going to jump into this. And we always start this podcast. We have a little bit of a conversation up front, and we should have pushed play or record at the beginning. But we're going to step back a little bit, because what's always amazed me about you is you are a highly driven guy, and it seems like there's only one way to do anything, and it's all in. Like everything you do, you lead with passion, you lead with emotion, and so we want to dig into like where that came from. So maybe to start, I wanted to understand a little bit about your background, your childhood, your parents. What were they like? Encouraging, discouraging? Did they help build self-confidence? Did they help build self-awareness? When did that come into your life? So tell me, where were you born? How did the journey begin?
Awesome. Thanks. Northwest, my family was living in Idaho. My dad was working for my grandpa's company, a propane company. And so we delivered propane and set up propane tanks and things like that when I was born. And when I was born, it was a really harsh winter. My family didn't have a lot of money. And so my mom and dad were 19 and 18 years old, newly married. Okay. And I was born, and it was about 30 degrees below zero at that time. My mom
you were
said,
North Idaho.
We were up in Grangeville, Idaho. Okay. Yeah, a little bit out of McCall.
Okay.
And my dad, he was out running, actually had an accident and ran the propane truck off the road. Near-death experience while my mom was pregnant. My mom had German measles when she was pregnant with me. Jeez. Told by numerous doctors to abort me, that I was going to be a handful. And so which
turned out not to be true.
Right. Well, in other ways, right? And so they moved forward despite the doctors saying to abort me. Yeah. And then when I was born, it was born into a challenging environment. There was an inch of ice on the windows on the inside of the trailer. It wasn't born into privilege by any means. And young parents in a trailer, in a tow trailer, right, hooked to a truck.
Wow. Okay.
And then my family moved to Central Oregon, where I was raised, just outside of Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
And my parents got divorced when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And so
only child, or did you?
I have a little sister that is 18 months younger than me, and I have a little brother that's 11 years younger than me.
So when your parents separated, you were 7?
I was 7.
How did that make you feel, and what did that change? What do you remember about that in terms of just changing your perspective? Or
my parents were kids, right? I mean now looking back, 18 and 19 years old, and then in the early 20s, it was survival, right? Their communication was not good. I remember a lot of fighting. And so when they got divorced, it was actually a little bit more peace. But there was, it was a split house. So we were having to travel back and forth and see our parents. And then my mom remarried, my dad remarried. Started having conflict with my stepdad when I lived with my mom. And they decided when I was 11 that it was time for me to go live with my dad, which was really hard on my mom. Yet it was exactly what I needed. And it was perfect and on the way for me, because I needed that male influence, and my dad was uber supportive, very strict, entrepreneur. He and my grandfather had a RV business that, I don't know how much money they made. We never talked about money, and I think that was actually a really key thing for us. There was no trust, there was no inheritance, there was nothing of the future that I was destined to leave home with, except what I was taught. Yeah. And so, as I grew up, my dad said that he encouraged me to do sports and athletics and do extracurricular activities at school. I had to have good grades, and I found an outlet in my athletics. Like there was a requirement to get good grades. I saw the value to that because I loved learning.
Okay.
I'm really a hungry individual. Like when there's and I don't know where I picked it up, but when I was little, someone had said it's okay to not know something one time.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
I
fair,
developed a high level of competency where I was like, okay, if I don't know something, you say something, I'm going to say, Ryan, what does that mean? You know, I want to understand and not be embarrassed by not knowing and seek to understand and come with a glass that's half full.
Yeah.
So that I felt like that really transcended into coaching, you know, being coached when I was an athlete.
Yeah.
Because then it was like, okay, how can I be better? How can I have somebody's eyes on me to improve? And just found that to be really helpful to, you know, achievement and success.
So when you talk about being your dad was a disciplined guy and very much into raising his son with a disciplined life, where did that come from, and how did that manifest itself? It was just high expectations?
I don't feel like I ever had a high expectation from him necessarily. There were standards.
Okay.
Like I had to get good grades to do athletics. My dad was there for every sport. Like every competition I had in high school and in junior high, he was there for me. And I felt really supported. Yeah. I felt, you know, cared for. I felt like that. I felt like I mattered. Yeah. And he wouldn't let me quit anything. And you know, looking back, it was such a tough thing when I was starting new sports for the first time. And I had no skills with them, and I was horrible, right? I mean, I felt like, gosh, I suck at this. I want to quit. Yeah. And I go to my dad and say, Dad, I want to quit. And he's like, no, you finish. Like, you can choose next season not to do the sport, but you're going to finish that season. And there seemed to be this magic to that point of that precipice where, you know, if I quit, I would never develop those skills. Yeah. And because he didn't let me quit, it was like the next week, the next day, all of a sudden I learned something that went to a new level where I was like, oh, I can do this. Yeah, and my confidence started to develop and my results improved. So then I got more attention from the coach. I got more time on the field. And so I tend to, there was a pattern where I expected to be one of the best players, if not the best, and to be the captain or to be, you know, the person that was being highlighted in the paper or whatnot. Do people, so listening to you, I hear a very confident young man going into high school, playing sports, seeming to be that way. Were you confident? Did you feel that sense of confidence when you were starting something new? Was it intimidating? What kind of, were self-confident, self-conscious? Where would you fall on that spectrum? So in athletics, very confident. Okay. Socially, like super shy. Okay. And interesting, like back, because who was my girlfriend? My girlfriend was the homecoming queen. My girlfriend was the prom queen. You know, I mean, yet I was really shy. Interesting. Socially. Okay. And so it was like on the field or on the water, that was where I really felt the most comfortable. And then I guess that confidence transcended to relationships. Yet I kind of was, I wasn't in a clique in high school. I was like friends with everyone because I wasn't arrogant or I didn't think I was better than anyone. I didn't come off that way. Yeah. And it was the feedback I got later going to reunions was that, wow, you know, Charlie, you always felt like you're just friends with everyone. That's cool. Genuinely. Yeah. Right? Cool. Like not separate or something.
So you said something, we're going to come back to that in communication relationships, which is a conversation we've had a lot about. And so I'm going to come back to that. But let's fast forward in your journey. So you got into sports. You're pretty good, pretty much at most of the things you tried. And from what we were talking about earlier, you had an opportunity to go play at university level, D1 football and track as well. So tell us a little bit, like, how did that journey happen and where did that take you from there into kind of your next phase?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that vision in athletics really became like a front and center for me. Like I went to sleep every night with a picture on my ceiling of a pole vaulting mechanics. Okay. And then I had, football was a sport I was actually the best at that time, and I wrestled and so I always believed and had vision for I was going to go to college and do sports. It was just like, I'm doing high school, excel here, be at the top of the game to be recruited and go to college. And so that's what has happened. I was recruited for all three sports. I ended up tying for first place in state of pole vaulting my senior year. And
this was in Portland.
I was in Central
state?
Oregon, but state was at University of Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon.
Yeah, Eugene, at the Hayward Field.
Yeah.
And so
Nike Town.
Yeah. And so when the coach approached me from U of O a few meets before districts, and in an event in Springfield, Oregon, just outside of Eugene, he came and just said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on the team." And I was looking at UCLA for football, and I was like, I mean, it was such a pattern interrupt. It just felt divine. Like all of a sudden, all my attention went there. I had state championships at Hayward Field, and he just offered me a deal.
What do you think made you take it? Like, because we talk a lot about, like, you reference a lot about kind of a divine intervention type of path, but what do you think, what triggered you? Because most people run, I mean, this is why football stadiums have 90,000 people and basketball stadiums, what took you to track and field over football? I'm curious.
Well,
'cause I think a lot of people probably would have said, no, if I'm best at football, UCLA's offered me. I mean, you almost can't get better than that.
Sure. Yeah, especially at that time because Oregon wasn't very good football.
Yeah.
Not like it is today. And so, it was, wow, here, this is Track City, USA.
Yep.
This is known as like the center of the track world is University of Oregon. It's where Nike started, Phil Knight, Hayward Field, Prefontaine. I mean, that history in Oregon really, I just felt a strong connection to it.
Yeah.
And it was that personal relationship with my coach Dan. Like he came to my meet. He sought me out. He was recruiting me, and it really translates to what I've experienced in New Skin and what we do because he invested in me.
Yeah.
And he said like, hey, I believe that this would be the best path for you. I believe that Oregon would be good for you. I believe you'd be good for Oregon. Yeah. And so I felt that genuine like we got you here.
Interesting.
And so I completely forgot about football. I still to this day have no idea. And I said divine because it just was not in my vision anymore to play football. Yeah. I didn't go talk to the Oregon coach or anything about it, which I'm sure they would have welcomed me on. And yet, I just was doing. It's just like narrow focus, and now this is what I'm doing.
So you go to university. You do pole vaulting, right? You did pretty well doing that.
Yeah.
But we got to get to the wakeboarding, right? Because that's where I first met you, was just as you were coming off your professional wakeboarding career. So some of this is for me is just learning about how we connect the dots here. Mm-hmm. So what happened? How did you get into wakeboarding? You said you've always been comfortable on the water. What happened?
So my most confident place was the water, and I started water skiing when I was 8 years old. My dad has told me that the first time I water skied on Lake Billy Chinook, he said, I told him I want to be a professional water skier. I don't remember that. That's what my dad tells me. And yet I can see myself saying that. And then, I mean, I just skied and I skied and I skied. And I remember sitting on the dock, 6 a.m. during the summer, sun comes up at 5 and my dad's out fishing. And I'm just sitting there on the dock with my feet in the water, my ski next to me. Just
like, let's go.
Like, man, when's he going to get back? Yeah. And so I developed this confidence and knew that I believed internally that I could be a professional water skier. Had other people telling me that as well. Yet there was a fear within me of what if I don't make it?
Yeah.
And so I never pursued it.
Yeah.
In college, my best friend, John Lindsay, had a ski Centurion he brought down from Alaska. So first week, fall term, he invites me to go skiing with him. And woo.
Yeah, let's do it.
We go out and invite a couple girls go out with us, of course, right? Because you always got to take girls with you to the lake. And I get done skiing for the first time, and he goes, "Why are you here? Like, why are you not on tour? What are you? What are you doing?" And then it hit me this regret of why didn't I? And then the question of what if? Yeah. And this just became a theme for me that I made a decision. If I ever have this feeling again in my life, I will move forward at all costs, no matter what. In your words, all in. I just said, I will do whatever it takes to fulfill the vision I have. And I will not be afraid or fearful of failure because I will just do whatever it takes. Yeah. And so I was going to school to become a pediatrician. I was doing internship in the hospital. I went fall term right into core, pre-med. I mean,
heavy.
Intense, heavy, dude. Like, I'm still going, what was I thinking? And my wife and I were having this conversation just the other day, like just right into biochem, core, all the heavy stuff.
Tough stuff.
Like, bam, like, I mean, I'm studying 5 hours a day of practice at track. And my buddies that are, political science are like, they go to school 1 day a week. Yeah, So my dad in my junior year, he said, why don't you, to make sure that this is your path, I encourage you to go and have a conversation with the top doctors in where you're interning to make sure they have what you want. As he said, I find in life that a lot of people have gone down these paths. They've never asked the people ahead of them that have been most successful, do you like it? Do you like it? What's life like at this position? Yeah. And so I did, and the doctors asked me, well, what do you want? And I told them, and I said, what do you have? And we both agreed I needed to go do something
else. A bad fit.
Not a fit.
Yeah.
And so that was at the point where I was like, okay, I don't have a vision of being a doctor. I don't see me in a code. I don't see me in the office. And that was when I just started to talk to God, like, what's next for me? Yeah. Please show me a sign. Please, present for me. I'm open. I'm looking, and I'm asking the questions. Yeah. And I knew if the quality of the questions I ask is going to determine the quality answers.
For sure.
Quality of what I look for is going to determine the quality of what I find. Yeah. So that summer, I'm in Lake Tahoe, California, and partying with my buddy Rocco. We see a sign, a flyer in this bar in North City, Tahoe City, North Shore. Pro wakeboarder demo the next morning. Yeah. So we're like, what's that? Yeah. Right. So we go, show up at the dock, waiting, no one's around, boat rolls over, and said, hey, you here for the demo? And we said, yeah. And the current world champion, Eric Perez, was there. And then this other new rider, Kobe Mikasic. Yeah. And so we're, get in this boat. There's about 15 people in the boat. Yeah. I'm sitting on the floor, it's tucked up because, this is a tiny boat that fit normally 5-6 people, and it's just packed. Yeah. So there's people all along the gunnels, and Eric goes out and rides, and I'm like, whoa, he's doing flips. The wake is 3 feet wide, and he's going flip, comes back, flips, spins. Cool. Kobe gets out there, goes he's parallel with the boat, and then he starts cutting into the wake, and I can feel the boat just slowing down. Boom! Flies 20 feet in the air. Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm seeing. My mind is like, I'm having an outer body experience, right? Yeah. And then just again and again and again. And he gets done. The boat rolls back to him, idles over, he gets out. And this is the moment that my life changed, because every girl went to the back of the boat. Right?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Immediate.
It wasn't like I wanted to be a pro wakeboarder. I wanted to be him.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, that works.
It was done. So I immediately just okay, I saw such a big vision, inside my mind. I mean, the movie was playing. Yeah. And that and it was the first time I'd had that experience since that defining, I'm never going to pass up a vision again. And so I asked him questions and just kept asking him questions. He let me borrow a board. I went out and rode. Yeah. Act of God. Somehow I have no idea how it happened, because it didn't happen again for months. Yeah. I landed 2 flips. Okay. Back to back.
Which is tough.
I have no idea what I'm doing. Clearly I have body awareness from pole vaulting. Yet it was just okay, this happened. I got a response because we pulled over to this bar, Chambers, which go celebrate with this Chambers punch. And all the people that are on the dock were, are you a pro? You're a pro wakeboarder? And I'm like, okay, this is it. Yeah. So I called my mom and my dad, called my coach, my friends, and said, I'm moving to Florida. I'm going to become a pro wakeboarder. And they're like, what's wakeboarding? Yeah. Yeah. What's wakeboarding?
Yeah. Brand new sport. Yeah.
I'm like, they're like, you're crazy. Yeah. How are you going to become professional at something that doesn't even exist? Yeah. And because it didn't, right? They had no vision for it. Yeah. And I thankfully knew what was inside of me, that I was going to figure it out. And so me actually making that declaration to others, for me has been something that it's Like there's no turning back.
Yeah.
Once I say I'm going to do something, then it's like whatever it takes, because at some point things are going to really suck.
Yeah.
And
At anything, right?
Right, yeah, like
Pretty well, yeah.
it looks like a straight path, right? Like so, what happened was that guy Kobe that I saw ride. I asked so many questions, taking the board back to him, let me borrow, and he goes, I said, I'm moving to Florida. I'm moving to Florida. I'm going to become a pro, and I want to do what you do, and he's like. He could see I had made a decision, right? And it was at my words, actions, everything. And so he goes, you know what? Why don't you just move out to Florida and live with me and my 3 other buddies that are pros? And I was like, you're right. I should totally do that.
Yeah.
You know? Go. And so this door opened. It just looked like a very straight path.
Yeah.
And those, there was 3 of them, Kobe and Mike and Bish, and legends in the sport. And they invested in me and they taught me. And it was the short story. I was 11th in the world 9 months later in the pros. But the longer story, it was hell. Getting there.
Yeah.
And it sucked. And I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
My dad, when I called my dad 2 months later from Florida and said, Dad, I want to quit.
Yeah.
It was a repeat of my childhood, except he took it to another level, Ryan.
Yeah.
Where I said, Dad, I don't like it. I'm not getting along with Kobe and Mike and Bish, and I'm miserable. I've knocked out my teeth. I've chipped a tooth. I've tore my abs. I tore my groin. I don't know if I tore my knee yet, but it hurts, and he said, if you quit and you come home, no one will ever believe a word you say ever again.
Wow.
Because you said you were going to become, and when you came back, you would be a pro wakeboarder.
Yeah.
And so
that
there's no home here for you.
Yeah.
That's not an option.
Yeah.
And that was what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, yet I'm 21 years old and tears to my dad. And it's the next day, things got better.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think in that process, so I find it interesting, your path has always been endorsed or led by your dad, your coach coming in, Eric was his name, that invited you down there, the wakeboarder. Sorry.
Kobe.
Yeah. These people believing, but it seems like at that point, or at one point, it had to switch, and now it was, okay, wait, it's on me now. Right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't go home. Your dad was clearly not going to make it happen for you. It was about you making that switch and going there.
Yeah.
So you do it. You get into it. How long did you do it? And then how did it open up this path? Let's connect more to this where we are today.
So, and there's like so many things that are just the same story repeating itself.
Yeah, those
like
are the
said,
life lessons, man. I'm capturing some of these.
It's crazy just to look back and see how things repeat. So I didn't have any sponsors, and I made the decision I have to be on the pro tour. If I'm going to be a pro, I got to be on the pro tour.
Yeah.
All these guys are being paid, they're being covered to go to the pro tour. So I asked my best friend Lindsay, hey, let's tow my boat around the country and hit all the pro tour stops, and we'll ride, which is a whole nother book in itself of just that adventure that year. Yeah. Yet if you're going to be a pro, you got to go and be where the pros are. I moved to Florida to immerse myself in that the knowing that I would become the average of that community, if not go beyond. And the same thing in the pro tour, right? Like, I mean, with our, and we can get into how that relates to this in a bit, but so I did that, and that put me into national. I did the tour, and then I ended up nationals. I qualified for worlds, and I finished 11th out of all the pros. Now the joke is that I didn't tell anyone
in a year
time,
though. Like, let's
9
be clear.
months. 9 months later.
Yeah,
9 months
different.
later.
That's different. There's an ability at that level.
Yes, and I did, yet I finished 11th out of 12. Right.
Listen,
right.
There we go.
I didn't tell anybody at that time,
okay,
right?
Man, 11th in the world, bro.
So I'm 11th in the world.
That's right.
And I pick up my first sponsor, Body Glove Wetsuits. And my agreement was I'd be pro. So what is pro? To me, pro meant
you're being paid.
Right.
So
Right.
they're paying me $200 a month.
I'm in.
I'm 21 years old, 22 years old. I'm making $200 a month as a pro wakeboarder. So I'm being paid. I'm 11th in the world. And I just use that as my now a new foundation. I'm pro parents. I'm not coming home to school, right? I did not say how much money I was making. I did not say how many people were in the field that I would be in 11th of, because I knew that they would all tell me to go home. They would all tell me that I'm making a mistake.
Yeah.
And so over the next, 10 years, I set the vision for myself, to be one of the top paid in the sport. And that happened. I mean, and I navigated my way as really an older member in the sport at 22, 23, when the younger generation's the future, right? But I'm considered an older guy in the sport at this time. And my family's entrepreneurs, so I had an entrepreneurial mind. My dad said, listen, in these equations, you under-promise and you over-deliver. And if you do that everywhere you go, you'll create a reputation for yourself, which led to my nickname being Mr. Business. So, cover the magazines, it's Mr. Business, articles is Mr. Business. And I knew that my job as an athlete in this sport was to make sure that all my sponsors' products sold more because of me.
Yeah.
So on the water, off the water,
You're repping them.
I'm moving product. I have Signature Wakeboards with my name on them. All my product, all the company, 26 sponsors. And I just always look for a way. How can I move the needle? How can I move more product for these companies that ultimately, when it comes to negotiation time, it's like, hey, like, do you want me with you or do you want me as a competitor? And ultimately, my sponsors, they wanted me. And it was interesting to see in the sport, the difference that athletes didn't understand, because my sponsors would come to me and say, hey, so-and-so, who's one of the top competitive riders, came and they're like, why are you sponsoring Charley? And it's just clear evidence to us that they don't get it.
Yeah.
Because I worked the boat shows, I did demos, I did, and I was only a podium guy the first year. But I understood what my job was, I believed, as a pro athlete. And so that translated. I had several tour buses on the road. 30-foot pictures of myself on each side, which was again another book, and just learned even more lessons and just more leverage. And then I woke up one day, and
10 years in.
10 years in. I'm 10 years in.
So you're 31 at the time, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, 31. I have blood, sweat, and tears in the sport. I've been, an editor with the magazines. I have my own tour. I'm team manager for my companies. I'm an athlete. I have my own signature products. I believed that I would be in the sport forever, and I created this safety net. What I believed, instructional videos, all the stuff that I've got an exit strategy. And then I wake up one morning, I put my feet on the ground, I look out at the lake I'm living on, and it was gone. Like I had no more fire inside.
Wow.
In that moment, I looked down, I'm like, I never want to do this again. Wow. From nowhere. Wow. Night before, on track, going whatever, and then it was just gone. And that's when massive fear set in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, what goes through your mind when you just realize, I don't want this anymore, and that's all I got, because you put everything into that, right?
Yep.
So what happened?
Well, that's where a conversation. We have a lot of friends that are pro athlete. My wife's a professional athlete. You're so narrow focused.
It's and you have to be.
You have to be, because it's me against everybody else, right? And it's just ego. Even if you're a humble, it's still focused on me. And so there's no awareness for most of us that this day will come, because you think, I'm different. I'm different than everybody else. This won't happen to me. And then when I realized, like, wow, I've got a couple years of contracts left, yet when they end, they're going to stop paying me.
I'm out.
And I've seen it. When you're done, it's as if you never existed. I mean,
you don't fade into the
they don't like keep. I mean, and you go
your
from
value's over.
You're like, okay, ring you out, and it's not. I wasn't a victim. Like this is just the way it is. And I want to be a pro athlete. I want to be top income earner in the sport. I I didn't ask for leveraged income. I didn't even know it existed. Right. I just wanted to make,
royalties, whatever.
Yeah, I just
you
wanted
help
to
build
make-
those brands.
yeah, and it was, I don't remember taking a day off because I loved what I did. Why would I take a day off from this vacation, that I'm living called my life? And so I immediately realized, okay, I have to figure out what's next because I want to retire on my terms. I'm not letting these guys tell me I'm done, not getting contracts. So I got to figure this out. So one of my mentors, a guy named amazing water skier, Carl Roberge, said, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Introduced that first time. I realized, wow, I got to be over here on the investor and big business, right? Yeah. Not employee, not small business. I got to have leverage. So now I'm asking that question and looking, how do I create a leveraged income? And I'm just getting back to prayer, saying, okay, Lord, please put this in front of me. I want to see this. I need a sign. And it was 6 months later that I was introduced. I actually was up at the Oakley cabin. I was up there to shoot a first hand with Fox Sports 54321 show, which I was a co-host for. And I'm like, what is this place? Like 6-story cabin, drive-in, drive-out sleds, epic. And they're like, oh, it's New Skin. I'm like, what is New Skin? And
furthest thing from wakeboarding, right?
Yeah, but it's all athletes up there, right? And we're just killing it. I mean, it's Sundance. Like, seriously, again, I'm like looking back, I'm like, how enrolling. It was so perfect. So they're like, yeah, hey, the company would like to meet with you, talk about sponsorship, right? And so using my language, sponsorship, they want to sponsor. So I'm, okay, billion, they just hit $1 billion. Okay, cha-ching, that's bigger than, Chevrolet is one of my sponsors, but I mean, this is, wow, okay, that's good. So the meeting goes from being at the company to then going to dinner, totally cool, to then now at a guy's house.
Okay.
And I roll up with my best friend, John Lindsay. So now we're on our winter tour. So now, because I'm not competing, I have a 30-foot trailer, again, all, branded and logoed me. And now I have all snowboards in there. So we're doing 80 days on the snow.
Yeah. So you've translated to snowboard.
Just making more money, representing more sponsors, having fun, and I want to ski, right? So we pull up to this house, and there's like 15, 20 cars around. Nice, beautiful house. And it's like, I don't know, 10 degrees below zero here in the middle of the winter. And my buddy comes up. He was my team manager with one of my biggest non-endemic sponsors. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like, dude, what is going on? This is seriously either an intervention or
something's happening.
We're in Utah. So
right.
they
could happen.
So we And so I cracked the window like an inch, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
He's like, man, I just got started with this, this company, New Skin, and I said you'd come, and it's a presentation about the business, and will you just come in and make me look good? And I said, yeah, man, I can support you. I'm not interested. I'm not interested at all.
But I'm here to support you.
And he said, you know what? Like, can we just agree? May we agree that you don't know what you're not interested in?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'd say that's accurate. So just come in and just hear what's going on. And then we'll go to dinner and normal stuff. And so I said, okay. And I, after that presentation, Jed Knight gave a presentation, his basement, sheet on the wall, church chairs, got scanned, totally intrigued me. And this is in January 2004. And I saw the average incomes. And I heard the stories, and I heard about Craig Tillotson, I heard about Sandy Tillotson, and I heard about Nathan, and then Jed got me on a call with Nathan Ricks, and he answered my questions, and I listened to him do another presentation later. But we got in the car. I didn't let on at all that I was interested. We get in
Let's go to dinner.
We get in the car, and I look at my buddy Lindsay, and I'm like, man, I think that we just found the biggest thing that I may ever see in my life, and we got to dig into this thing. Figure it out. And a week later, we got on to a business opportunity call at that time with Nathan, listened to that, and then he answered questions. And then February 1st, 2004, signed up and made a decision in 11 months, I'm going to be Blue Diamond.
Yeah. Forget 9. Let's do 11 and get that to
11.
That
I felt that was the plan.
So you talk about you talk about divine intervention. You talk about like this like path, right? Did you feel, they always say you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect them looking back, right? So looking back now, you've had this thread of like where you need to be going. Was it guiding you during that time? Did you feel like that sense, or was it more like, hey, this is dropped here, this is dropped here, this is dropped here, and it just connected for you?
I saw it very clear.
Yeah.
And when I,
how do people like listening to this, whatever, how do people tune into that?
well, I think we all have it. It's just whether or not that we have so much noise,
Okay.
other distractions, and we're not paying attention, or we ignore it.
Okay.
And which has happened to me as well. Like I said in the beginning with water skiing, that voice was there. I believe that was, and if someone's not failed believer, I don't mean to like confuse you with this, but I felt like that was a Holy Spirit like speaking to me during those times that I ignored it, right? And so then at that time, Ryan, I didn't call it that. I was just like, oh, this is my intuition or whatever it is. Yeah. Yet when I have a vision and like I'm able to see the future with it, it is that for me. Like I believe this is a sign like, hey, this is on the way.
That's interesting.
And then yes, there's like, I literally feel like God is just smacking me in the face saying, pay attention, because there's this repetitive pattern that, like when I went to college and Dan recruited me to U of O, I'd show up at practice and he'd invest in me. And I find this very unique because I haven't talked to many people that have said that this happened for them. But my coach said, this is what we are doing today. He didn't write out a workout and then say, go do it.
Yeah.
He was standing right next to me doing the 200 sprints.
Yeah.
I mean, and so he didn't question, this is our workout, right? Because my coach is doing it with me. And then when I saw wakeboarding and Kobe and Mike and Bish, these are guys that were like they were already made, you know what I mean, in the sport. Like they had reputation, credibility, and they invested in me. Yeah. And so when I started New Skin, here I am, and I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, okay, I meet Jed Knight. Jed introduced me to Nathan. Nathan and I immediately connect. And then I'm introduced to Sandy Tilton. And then I have all these people investing in me because I said, here's what I'm going to do. I was coachable. And that was where, I've assisted Nathan and I's relationship began, where I said, okay, I want to be Blue Diamond by December 31st. He said, okay, do this. I did what he told me to do. That means I had more credibility with him. Come back to him. He goes, okay, Charlie's going to do what I tell him to do, so I'm going to invest more. I get what he tells me I'm going to get, so I believe him more. And then that keeps going, where the pile of evidence with each person is like, this is a worthy investment. And then that my results in New Skin translated to where I, made friends with Sandy and got her attention. And so those, I observed, here I am sitting with you, right? The CEO of New Skin, right? The man.
Dude, I'm saying the same thing. I'm sitting with the Charley Patterson.
There's only one of each of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the pattern, right? So when I said, oh, I'm going to go into acting or what I'm going to do, the same things happen.
Yeah. But people don't. So I think that point of when you and I want to come back to this, the visioning idea. So, I broke my neck just a bit ago, right? So when you talk about the voice in your head, I tell people this. They're like, are you going to stop skiing? Are you going to stop racing? Are you going to stop? I said, no, I'm going to start listening to the voice in my head that told me, don't go down that chute, right? So the voice, but this point of the voice, and you saying we all have it in us, I think is absolutely true. Like whatever we want to call it, intuition, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to talk about. But there's something in advance of that you have said in every one of your examples, which is vision. You had a vision. You talked about it as an 8-year-old kid. You want to be your vision will be pro skier, right? Water skier. The idea of vision and then having that intuition that's guiding you along that path, I think that recipe between the two. I think you're right, because when you said we all have it in us, I'm like, yeah, is that true? But I think we all do. I don't think we have either the confidence to follow it or maybe the attentiveness to follow it. but we all have a vision if we'll sit down and write it down. So I want to translate this because what we've been talking about so far is your journey up until now. But the interesting thing on the new skin side of things is we always say, like, the only success comes by helping other people succeed, right? I mean, it really is built that way. Like, you can't build a business by burning your customers over and over again. Your business has now become a business of coaching, of mentoring, side by side, just what your coaches were doing, right?
Yeah.
How important is it for you? And then we'll talk about weeding, because Nathan, he was also weeding out, right? He has finite time in his day. Sure. And your point about he'd tell me what to do, I would go do it, then he would invest more in me. But he told a lot of people what to do and they didn't go do it. So help me understand, how do you translate these lessons personally in your personal life, finding success up until now, into now 18 years of success with New Skin in the coaching and mentoring side of the business? Because, yeah, you love our products. You obviously take a lot of the products. When you first hear New Skin, you're probably not thinking, hey, man, that sounds like that's Body Glove, right? I mean, different sponsorship.
Right.
But how do you translate those skills to other people? And how conscious is that of, I learned all these lessons over my 40 years, and now I'm into, or 35, whatever it was, by the time you got really going, 32 maybe it was, into coaching other people.
Yeah.
And how do you take that approach and help people realize what you did?
Mm-hmm. You know, Nathan, and I believe I said this in Nathan's passing with that event here last year, January, is that, you know, like, people will say, you know, practice what you preach, right? Yeah. My experience of Nate was preach what you practice.
Yeah.
So what I do,
100%.
what I've been doing, 100%. What I've done, what people are going to observe me doing is what I teach. And then I don't have to ask myself, do my actions match my words, right? So preaching what I practice. So yeah, we have team of the university here right now this weekend, and then I'm leaving with my team, a group that have about 40 that have flown in from around the world to go do some business development and personal development, and passing on those lessons and frameworks and everything for people to apply in their life in every area. Yeah. Because, you know, to me, I found New Skin is my new sport, right? And it was
you treat it like, when you're describing everything you did on wake surfing or wakeboarding and your football and all that, and then I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, this is what you do with your
business.
The same.
Yeah,
right? You're doing the same. Yeah, it's the same thing.
We show up the same way everywhere, right? Yeah. Like we do, and it's that awareness. For me, is like, okay, just me. It's like, this is my new sport. Be like, how can it be like wakeboarding? Like, it is exactly like wakeboarding.
Yeah.
You don't see my boat? Yeah. It's
Where's
the same thing. I be driving down the road and go, hey, she's cute. Roll down the window and go, what are you doing right now? Going to school. You should come to the lake with us. Okay, cool. Follow me. I mean, that's what we do, right? Like, and then I take that person and, I mean, this is a literal example. Yeah. Taught that girl how to ride. Wow. She listened to me. Yeah. I kept investing in her. She went pro. I helped her get her sponsor, and she became one of the top women in the world. Wow. And I did that over and over and over. So when I say, I taught and I invested in the sport and grassroots and the pro level and the beginning and the end and the whole journey, right? So then New Skin comes and I'm like, oh my gosh, my whole life has led me to here with a leveraged income that I can be rewarded right long past this moment of this time investing. Like, I gave blood, sweat, and tears to wakeboarding, and then it ended. Right. And so to me, it was that you said they go together. Yeah. If I help other people get what they want, I get closer to what I want. Yeah. And it's hand in glove here. Yeah. All of those lessons in my own life, I mean, we use them in story, right? If you're going to tell a story, have a point. Yeah. What we're doing. Sure. And if you want to make a point, use a story. Yeah. To make that connection. Yeah. And so I believe that when people in New Skin, or with whatever they're doing, when they can see the parallels of what they do, what they've done, and what they know, and what they've learned, and how it translates to what they're doing in this moment, they'll see greater amount of success. Yeah. Now, when people come into New Skin, you've either learned skills before New Skin that apply here, which was true for me. Yeah. And I saw it, and I'm like, this is it. Like, oh my gosh, I learned how to recruit by meeting girls. Yeah. Because I'm standing against the wall in college and going, man, I'm really shy, and I'm watching all these guys get the girls. Yeah. This is over.
Yeah. I gotta do this.
I gotta step into this and learn these skills. Yeah. Well, that is sales. Yeah. That is, and then that translates here to recruiting. So it's like when you can find, okay, I know how to do this, and you come in and you're going to create results that will be greater if you have skills when you come into the business. And we see those people, right? They come in, explosive growth. Some come in and they've never developed the skills before. They've been an employee. They haven't had an entrepreneurial mindset. So I believe there's a greater journey for them that can be longer, requires more delayed gratification. And they may ask themselves, like, why am I not seeing those results? Well, because you have to learn the skills to apply here.
Yeah, but if I look at that, Charlie, so I'm listening to what you said, and then you're talking about taking a group offsite. So you got a group here, you're taking a group offsite. I think we've got South Africa. In fact, I think a bunch of your people are listening because the podcast's blowing up in South Africa.
Good.
And I'm like, it's got to be Charlie. So I'll talk to him about, thanks for the blow up before you even on it. So it's going to blow up even more. But you're talking about this, Charlie, and I'm sitting there going, how fortunate were you and have you been to have had a coached path to success in track and field, in wake surf? Yeah, again, you did it, but having a coach in there to help you develop, and then in this business, right? Having someone like Nathan, like, take the time. And by the way, they're out there more than we think.
Sure.
And now turning around and doing the same thing for everyone else, because most adults, when we leave high school, because most of us aren't able to play D1, or you lose that opportunity to be coached and to be developed and to build those skill sets and reminded of the vision and the path, and that the window narrows, or the opportunities narrow, and you don't always find that opportunity, right? Mostly in corporations, it's up or out. So either you're performing or you're out. It's not as much about, once in a while you find somebody that really invests in you. And like for me, Truman, I was our CEO, like really invested in me. But a lot of people I see and hear that, and I haven't invested in a lot of people when I should have. It's also a time management issue of who steps up and all that. You now are in an environment and in a role where you are literally coaching people using your journey and your mentor. And I don't know that many more environments where people can get that sort of vested and invested commitment.
Sure.
Like, where else do you get that?
Yeah.
It
is very unique.
You couldn't be doing wakeboarding now, like, and still, or, well, you could probably.
Well,
you're actually doing better time
and
now.
making a lot less money than you made, but it is very special. And that's what the culture of our company.
Yeah.
I love New Skin. Yeah. I love what it provides me. I love what it provides my family, and I love what new people like there's new people I'm bringing into the business right now that I'm like, this is the best thing you can do for yourself. Yeah. You're going to grow. You're going to be able to sustain and build an asset for yourself. Right. This leverage. You're going to grow personally. Yeah. You're going to be a better human. You're going to be a better partner. You're going to develop leadership here if you step into that role. Yes, I feel very fortunate that I have had the investment of others in me because one, I'm coachable and I'm willing to change. Yeah. I'm not static. I have a growth mindset. Yeah. And when it's someone that I respect and they have what I want, I listen to them. Yeah. And, in our business, we're constantly, we blue diamond hunters, we're milling, we're sifting and sorting, looking for the bright, shiny person. Yeah. Yeah. And we stick out. Yeah. You stuck out to the leaders in the business before you. Yeah. I stick out in my way. My wife, when we met on an airplane, which is a whole nother vision and a whole nother story, is that she said the first thing about you, like, you were bright and shiny. You were just worldly. Like, she said, I glowed, and she glowed to me. I look up.
I remember you talking about,
But we look for that. Yeah. And I think, again, listening to the voice, when you find that person, and they show you who they are with their actions, not their words, but their actions, believe them. Yeah. Yeah. To the point that the ones that are not, and they're showing you their actions, don't make excuses for them. And believe what you see. Yeah. And then the ones that show up and they put the points on the tape on the board. They do what they say they're going to do. Man, throw gas on that fire and invest in them, because those people. Nathan became my second father. Yeah. He became my wife's second father. Yeah. Godfather to my son Hemi. He and his wife Joyce in every area of our lives. Yeah. And my other godparents, Casey Council. built a business with her in New Skin. We forged a relationship, became my sister from another mister, and one of my closest people in the world. My other godparents are from New Skin as well, because of the trials and the pressure that we went through together, and the results that we created, and trust.
Yeah. You know, so are you okay to go a few more minutes? Because I want to dive into two more things. Yeah. So you're talking about this. Let me ask you, Charley, you've studied humanity now for the last 18 years. Like I mean, you knew it before, but as you said, previously it was focused on building you, right? This business is all about building others, and then you benefit through that process. What do you think the generation coming up, so when you were hungry, like that meat eating 31-year-old, like, this isn't going to work, I got to go this path, and you compare that with the 31-year-olds you're meeting today, is there a difference? Or do you think it's still finding the person that stands out? And they're always going to be the people that stand out. How do you view, because we talk a lot about, like, is Gen Z, you know, are they just about something totally different? It's not about assets. It's all about experiences. It's not about this. It's all about, so having fun. It's not about building. Do you find that or not? You think it's always, it's out there?
Well, I think that my experience is that human behavior is timeless. And that when we look at the percentage of people that, you know, again, this is my take on it. 95% of people quit everything that they do. 5% will do enough time and energy into something that they will actually get through, develop the skills to have results that keeps them in it. And I believe that what is the differentiating factor there is the people that are the 5% that don't quit. They have the same feelings as the people that quit, yet they're willing to move into a place and invest in themselves to learn the skills, where the 95% believe or are unaware that everyone is feeling the same thing. They just don't quit. Right. And it's like the thing where when we all see something like, oh my gosh, that looks awesome. And you're unconsciously incompetent. Right. Stage one. And then the moment you attempt it, you immediately move to stage two, which is competently or consciously incompetent. I'm aware that I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Well, then to go into the third stage of consciously competent, it requires repetition. It's that 10,000 hour rule. The repetition, the mother of every skill, right? Practice makes improvement. That's investment of time, the laps, the miles, you know, the inviting, all of that to learn those skills, where the 95% that quit, that they're feeling that frustration when they become consciously aware that they're incompetent. I don't believe that they realize that everyone else is feeling the same way. They think they're different. They think they're different than the 5%, when all that's different is the action that's taken. And so then we move into the consciously competent, and we get the payback and the results, and we move into a euphoric, confident, I know that I know feeling. And you have a you know, just a confidence. You keep moving forward that ultimately gets people to a place where even though our results are great, we get disillusioned and frustrated. And that, again, human behavior pattern then separates the 1% and 2%. That are going to skill up again, reinvest like you've done time and time and time again, to go from the mailroom, the call center, to CEO, right? Where my pattern was every 10 years, I hit that wall and I want to restart. Where when I had the awareness of human behavior and my patterns with New Skin at 10 years, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to restart. I want to skill up again. And I feel like now in my 20th year, because I just had my 20-year anniversary. I'm in that time. It's time for me to skill up again.
What's that next turn of the crank?
And I've got to improve. It's my season. It's my generation to go out and to recruit.
I love that.
Yet, so to specifically your answer, I you know, oh my gosh, when I was a kid, it was uphill both ways in the snow, you know, but and our perspectives tend to change. Yet I believe with historical human behavior patterns, those bright and shiny people at 32 years old, which is our average age, the team elite comes in the business and signs up,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
My new intention in year 20 is, oh my gosh, to this point, I have been sponsoring anything with a heartbeat and a credit card.
Right.
Okay. And then sitting and sort of looking. Now I'm shifting my attention. I want to that plus or minus 32-year-old that is hungry, that has hit life, that for most of us men wake up in our early mid-30s like, whoa, I got to get my stuff together. And, you know, whether it's relationships, kids, maturity, that is the age, right? And so, no, I think look for them and we're going to find them. Now, going where they are is a little different because they're not in the same place, in the same communication that we had. So
and we got to find that, right? That's been some of our conversations is we got this amazing vehicle and it's just parked on the wrong track, right? Like we got to get it in the right track. So, okay. So I love that. And your point about, we could go so we got to do this again in different episodes because I would love to dive in the decade thing, your philosophy around that. And I love what you just said around reinventing ourselves. That's where I am right now. I just turned 50. I got my next 10 years.
To the team.
Right. And I got my next 10 and I'm like, what do I, based on my previous 50 years now, every decade, it's kind of this new opportunity. I'm redefining myself now. I'm doing exactly what you just said. It's like, what will these next 10 years mean? And what's interesting for me is I kind of got where I want to go personally, right? Whatever. Like it is what it is now. It's more about like, I want people to come with me, meaning in this journey, not to get where I am, to come with me in this journey. And that's what I hear you talking about. So we can do a whole nother episode on this. But before we go, because you got stuff going on, I got to capture on, because I'm going to talk about Christy and I'm going to talk about you are all passion. You are all emotion. I mean, I just feel the energy just talking with you all the time, right? It's just how you live. Which, by the way, I think if there's one characteristic that will determine and ensure success, it's just that, right? It's just bringing it to everything you do. But every time you talk about Christy, you talk about your 5 kids. It's really touching for me, and it's actually inspiring for me because you aspire to show up as a dad every day, like literally every day. It's really inspiring. It's show up as a husband every day. You know, you work on it. You really make an intentional focus. But I want you to tell a little bit of the story because I'd like to just get this. I want to record it.
Okay.
Tell me because you met Christy a little later. You ended up having some kids, fast.
My million kids.
And it wasn't supposed to happen. So give me, if you would, just take me through that and take us through that journey. 'Cause that's, I think, what makes you who you are.
So
a big part of it.
When I was a teenager, something in me just knew that I was going to meet my wife at 35. And I was going to have kids in my 40s. And so when my sister got married in her teens and we're at her wedding, and my mom said, "You're not going to get married for a long time, are you?" And I told her that. I said, "No, Mom, I'm going to be in my 30s. I'll be most likely later, and I'll be in my 40s when I have kids." And I was 20 when I said that. And so again, it was just a voice and something that I just knew. And so I got into my 30s and I was here doing New Skin. And I was in a on-again, off-again relationship with an incredible woman named Mia, who's a very dear friend of mine still, and my wife's. But there was no vision. I was standing at Nick Weineker's wedding to his wife, Sonia. And Sonia's walking down the aisle to Nick, and I'm standing there with Mia, and I'm like, I don't see her in my future. I don't see her walking down the aisle. Wow. Bing sign, right? Wow. She's not my wife. Wow. Right? So that was there. Sandy and I were playing tennis one afternoon, and we sat down to have lunch, and she asked me, she goes, "Have you ever approached relationships like you do athletics and business?" And I was so confused. I was like, how are they even the same? You know, I don't get it. And so she, and I asked that.
From the guy that just said wakeboarding and this business is exactly the same.
Right,
you got it.
I hadn't connected it yet. Okay. Yes, yeah. Okay. Clearly she knew that it was a lesson here for me. So she said, okay, it's the same. You've never set a goal around it. You attract who you are. You and Mia attracted each other. Then you grew apart because you weren't intentional about growing together. And so we even told me, she goes, I don't know who you are. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know who you are either, you know? And so that was the end. Well, Sandy had me make a list of my dream wife and partner, and it was pages, and she just kept asking me questions. And then she said, I'm going to ask you a question that may be the most difficult one that you've ever answered. I'm like, okay. And she said, are you this list? Ouch. And I said, well, I'm some of them, these things. And she said, okay, well, when you're all of them, you will meet this woman. And so that became my roadmap to meet that woman. And which led me to celibacy. I was like, that was something, I didn't even know how to say that word back then, you know? And that whole other story, and then sobriety. 3-year journey of becoming the list. And I reached a point where I was like, okay, I am this list. It's time. And so I entered into a goal setting program. It was a lot of personal development. I was investing a lot. At the same time, I was working 12-hour days or more with New Skin. I'm also getting coaching and personal development, people investing in me, where Casey Council came into play. She was one of my coaches. And so I decided, okay, it's time for me to meet my wife. I set a goal to meet my wife in 90 days. Amongst all these other goals with New Skin and other things, fitness and stuff. Well, a month into it, I haven't met my wife. And I'm crushing all these other goals. So the coaches asked me, are you open to a challenge? Which, you know, this was a normal thing. You blindly say yes.
Why not? Yeah.
And you don't know what the challenge is. Okay. So they said, you know, I said, yeah, sure. They said, great, meet your wife in 24 hours. All right. Okay. Well, this is the same as everything else. I was in action with things, surrender, move to action, which I did. And about 8 hours later, I get on a flight to fly to Orlando, where I was building my new home on Lake Holden. And the first class was full. They sit me in coach. I'm just, you know, really in just an amazing elevated state, energy, my heart, my mind. I'm just focused on this, like, this is happening. I have no idea how, yet I'm going to meet my wife. So the flight attendant comes back and says, Mr. Patterson, we have a seat that opened up front. You know, would you like to come up? And I said, absolutely, that sounds great. I'm walking up there, and now I'm hearing on the loudspeaker, Charley Patterson and Christy Hemme come to the front, which, I mean, I just hear my own name, and I'm okay, cool. I go up there, sit down in 3B. Moments later, after hearing Christy Hemme come to the front, I turn, and my wife is standing in the aisle to sit down in 3A. And I turn and look at her, and I knew in that moment that was my wife. And I got up to help her with her bag, and she's all 5'3", and she just like almost like gave me an elbow.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I got it.
Yeah,
she's like, I got it. And I remember just going,
my bag out.
Okay, okay. So she sits down, and I look at her, and I'm still standing in the aisle, and I go, what do you do? Yeah. And there's all these other dreams that I'd been having reoccurring that led into this, but I said. She goes, oh, no, guess. And I said, you're a singer. You're a rock star. You're a singer. And she goes, well, I do that. That's not what I do professionally. And I go, what do you do? And she goes, I'm a professional wrestler. Which is, my wife never talks about this. Like, this is so out of character for her.
We won't publish.
No, like,
we won't post this.
I just go, no. I'm like sitting there. I go, I swore. I was like, no effing way. You what? Yeah. And so we sit down and just had this big conversation. Whole 5-hour flight to Orlando. I knew I didn't tell her she's my wife, but I knew she's my wife.
That would.
I didn't tell her about the goal. That would be bad. I've seen those.
You're like, I gotta close this.
Yeah, rom-com, kid movies. But we had a big conversation. I told her that the next woman that I was with, romantically, sexually, was going to be my wife when she was my wife. And that was like a pattern for her, in her world. She's like, and my previous wrestler were like, what? That is what? Yeah. And so, we got off that. We had our date, which is amazing that night. And got married 20 months later in Tunnels Beach in Kauai. And then burst. And she just, today, my wife she's such a good communicator, and our relationship with communication has really been paramount for our success and our vision, which we talk about that I have with my wife, because I shared with her in the beginning, my vision with us, that I was 130 years old. We're sitting in rocking chairs, holding hands, in love with each other, watching our children play with our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and our children are coming up to us and thanking us for loving them, protecting them, and teaching them how to thrive and succeed at life. And that's the end of the story. So everything between now and then, that's it's all on the way.
That's what
right?
it's working towards.
Yet she tells me, she asked me, she goes, what out of everything, what do you believe that you're the most successful at? Or she just said successful. And I said, well, I mean, I like to believe I'm successful at everything that I've done, you know, but based on, I said, you know how I define success? And she's like, yeah, I define success by forward progress towards a worthy goal. So as long as I have a goal, worthy goal, and I'm in progress towards it, I'm being successful. And she said, okay, so what are you most successful? And I'm like, I guess she told me, she's like, I don't know anyone or hear anyone that is like you as a husband. She's like, you are the greatest husband I can imagine, which
Best
is
compliment
huge
ever,
compliment, right? Huge. And I still know I have a lot of room to grow. My wife has 6 kids. I have 5, right? Because I'm her 6th kid.
Yeah.
But it's we had our daughter when I was 42, Charley Rose, which changed my life immediately. Understood love, unconditional love for the first time in my life, and she owns me. And then we had a child, our son Holden, pass at 20 weeks in pregnancy. He was terminal, no kidneys, and some other stuff with heart. So we had that, which we know is very common. For those who have gone through it, we understand what you have felt. With all of our life experience, we believe that this was on the way and it was happening for us. And that Holden was called to God's side, didn't have to go through the human experience, and that we truly, we just turned it over and we're like, this is happening for us. We do not know why or how. 2 months later, after the reduction, a little bit more, in end of June, we go to the doctor to confirm we're pregnant again. And the doctor tells us that we are pregnant with 4 babies at one time.
Jeez.
And we just laughed. We were just like, this is our life. This is insane. Like, how does this happen? We didn't do IVF. Like, this was, and
So no IVF.
no IVF. Like, no, this is God's work. Like and then looking back, So the first 3 doctors told us, like, literally the doctor, and I have it all videoed because I was recording every appointment.
And I've seen it, and
it's just crazy.
Heard it.
I didn't record the first one, but she said the same things after the second one when we knew we had 4 in there. And the first doctor said you can't have 4, and then the next one you said you have to reduce 2, and the next one said you had to abort 2, and it was just fear. And we believe God gave us 4 babies on purpose. Like this, I'm not going to play God. Whatever happens, this is our path, because the doctors are like, 80% chance, Charley, you're going to raise those kids by yourself. They're going to live with you for their entire life, and you will do it alone because your wife will not make it. That's what we heard over and over. Well, my wife just told this story yesterday. She had visions and dreams of our children on the water at the lake, playing in the boats with us, and said, this is our vision. These kids are going to be okay. And whatever the journey is, we're moving forward. And so we did. And what set us up for success in the birthing process was Holden being in there for 20 months and then going to heaven, and her space, she had created all this space that it was expanded. They said, if that hadn't happened, it would have been even less likely that you had success. And so we held this vision. We asked the whole world, like, please focus on this. Just like my wife being a professional wrestler and being the only one that's done what she's done in the sport of wrestling, and my career and stuff we've done, we're like, okay, it's vision. We've got to tell everybody what to focus on. We got to control our environment. We only let people in that are focused on the same outcome as us, if you want, in our circle, and that is a healthy birth in January of 2018. Healthy mother, healthy kids. And we put it out to the world. And I mean, prayer warriors, prayer groups all over that were focused on that same intention. And most difficult thing that we'd ever gone through. I mean, my wife was in labor for an entire month straight, labor, right? And had 2 cerclages. I mean, crazy stories. But they were born on their older sister's 3rd birthday. So we have 5 kids, 2 births, 1 birthday. They're all healthy. They all have our energy times 10.
Yeah.
Which is the most challenging thing I've ever dealt with in my life.
Payback, dude.
It is a new sport, right? Yeah, it is payback. But it's been the thing with the kids, my marriage, meeting Christy, new skin, wakeboarding. It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. Where we are going with new skin for the next 40 years is the same. Like it's the same. Like let's just repeat.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to finish this because this is inspiring. But Charley, I think again, this podcast is all about empowering people by helping them to see that everything you just talked about is inside of each of us. But I think it takes different people's examples in living life with intention to realize what is inside of us. And when I hear you talking about vision and that committed path and that determination and that, all of those elements, I think that's what I'll take away from this is you got to have a clear vision, and then you got to have faith, right? However you define faith, but that idea that got into your head, it's not just an idea.
No.
And that feeling you have about that is not like, that's something pushing you for a better version of yourself. And I think you've demonstrated that through your whole life. So anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. We'll do this again. We're going to Dubai in a month, a couple weeks, I guess. And so we may even have a chance to sit down again and chat. But thanks for being here. Thanks for being who you are. Thanks for empowering people around the world. We get messages from you. You're South Africa. You're over in Asia. You're here. You're just doing it all the time. And somehow you have a van and you pile all the kids in and you take them to everyone's house, by the way, like Joyce's tent, like everyone's Stotts are tending, so you can be here and do what you do and just keep bringing it to the world. So thanks for being here, brother.
May I finish with one point?
Please
one
do.
Thing?
Please do.
If no matter where you are in your journey, like I truly believe it's on, whatever's happening is on the way, and it's happening for us. The obstacles, the challenges, they're on purpose. And that's why we grow. We grow from them. They're evidence that we're moving in the right direction. When we have that vision and we set the goal, that is when providence moves through, right? It moves too. And all sorts of unforeseen events, circumstances, people come his or her way in support of that decision. And when we make a decision, it is death to all other options. Like we make a decision about where we're going in the next 40 years in New Skin. That's it. And we set that goal, and we have to know, like, just like going in the gym, if I want to get more fit, if I want to build my muscles, I have to go under more pressure.
Yeah.
If I want more traction in the snow, I have to carry a heavier load in my car.
Yeah.
Like these are all what happened to us.
That's the laws of the universe.
They're on the way.
Yeah.
And so everything that's happened in the last 40 years, what's happened in the last year, what's happened in the last 5 years, 7 years, whatever in New Skin, it's on the way. And it's made us, we're right where we're meant to be right now, to be that next generation that we take New Skin to 5 billion, to 10 billion, to 20 billion.
Oh, I love it. The obstacle is the way.
Is the way.
Okay, brother. Hey, thank you. Thanks for being who you are. Thanks, everybody.